Welcome back to the latest episode of the Flex Success podcast, where we teach you how to be less shit. As always, we will be your co-hosts. I'm Lizzie, and this is Dean.
Now, if you find value in this episode, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, and drop a comment below on YouTube. Share us with your friends, give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast app, and if you want to take a screenshot and tag us on Instagram, just do that by putting in @flex_success.
And while you're on Instagram, you can check out everything we offer, from our ebooks to courses and programs. You can book a consultation or inquire about coaching via the link in our bio, or you can do that on our website.
Enjoy the episode.
Episode 100. Welcome, everyone.
I tried to redo my exciting bit. No one listening knows that we're redoing this today.
No.
We started recording and there was a problem with the mics. And so we're trying to do the exciting intro again. But anyways, Mike, episode 100, we wanted to have you on because you were so handsome and interesting and intelligent and humble and everything else.
How would you feel if we brought a female guest on and start off that? We brought you on because you're beautiful. No, and also because you're smart.
Interesting and funny.
I'm just glad you called him handsome and not beautiful.
I think you're beautiful too.
Thank you so much.
How do you feel about being called beautiful, Mike?
I think beauty is a universal concept, isn't it? I don't think I would be
It's not a
sad
gender
about
word.
it.
Okay.
Better than being called ugly, isn't it?
It's true.
I think it is.
I wouldn't be sad. I just don't feel complimented when someone calls me
Look,
beautiful.
speaking of ugly, I just think we need to begin the podcast with me admitting my foolishness, and then we can get on with it. Now, this camera is set up a little bit further away than usual. I'm here in Mexico City and decided to get my lipstick tattooed on. And I thought a good place to start was to just get a regular skull and bone tattoo artist to give it a go. And he really stuffed it up. Now that the swelling's gone down and I've covered some bruises with a bit of makeup and stuff, it's not so bad from a distance, but I'm not feeling beautiful right now. Mike says that he just couldn't tell that anything is wrong, which is one of the reasons why he brought you on. He just wouldn't tell me if I looked ugly, and I love that.
I feel like
I think you would.
I would not, in both of you, I feel like I would not ever be able to see anything other than the beauty of your souls. So I would never notice that.
This guy, look at him.
To be fair, though, Liz, you actually did want a skull and bones tattooist because normal cosmetic tattooers won't usually use more of a permanent ink.
That's true. I wanted a
And
permanent.
she didn't want to have to redo them. And she wanted a darker. So she got all the things she really wanted, but it's the hindsight of that. Apparently those things aren't done for a reason.
Yeah, I won't bore guests with the reasons why you don't want body ink in your lips. But there are reasons, and my lips are turning grey. So I'm doing...
Well, you may want it if you use pink tones, just not brown and reds.
Yeah, look, it was all
You
right.
live and you learn, Mike.
You live and you learn. But Mike...
I feel like we need to ask him if he's ever had a live and learn moment like this.
Maybe, but first,
Okay.
we're going to talk about misinformation today. And I thought a
Yes.
good place to start was this. I feel like I'm not a dumb person. I have a high level of education. I feel like I've got some critical thinking skills, but I figured, gosh, a tattooist is a tattooist. Is there really that much of a difference?
They're all in the same industry.
I spent some time on Google looking around, and I just couldn't come up with any reason why I wouldn't go ahead and get this tattoo. And in hindsight, that was an enormous mistake. That's cost me a lot of pain, and it's going to cost me a lot of money and time and stress to fix. And I'm not in the tattoo industry, so it just makes me think people who aren't in the health and fitness industry might not know all the nuances and might not realize why maybe they shouldn't get their PT to be writing them a nutrition program. And it's just made me really empathize with people who aren't in the industry and don't really understand those bits and bobs. So as a GP, that's your official title, isn't it? General practitioner.
Yeah.
Okay. What are some things that your patients end up coming to you with, some misunderstandings or just some details that they're really missing that they're getting wrong, like Lizzie and her stupid tattoo?
That's a really good question. And I think that the universal theme about it is this sort of sense of guilt or shame for not already knowing the answer. I think there's a lot of very simple issues where people seek help from a professional and they feel silly because they didn't know this stuff already. And I think the point to make is that you're not supposed to know this stuff already. You're supposed to be able to rely on professionals to help you. Like we want people to seek help from professionals. We want people to listen to professionals, and we want people to get decent advice from professionals. So I think the point to make, and this is what's really difficult sometimes in correcting misinformation, is that people think that you're getting annoyed with them for not knowing stuff already, when really who you're getting annoyed with are the professionals who should know better, who are giving out misinformation, or the people who are portraying themselves as professionals who are giving out misinformation. And I think that one of the things to be really careful about when trying to correct misinformation is not to make people feel stupid because they thought something different. Because I think we've all been in that situation before. We've all done the stuff that in hindsight we're like, that was properly stupid. But it wasn't stupid at the time, or we wouldn't be doing it, because we're not stupid people. Like this is the thing, is that there is a certain amount of life that you just don't know about because you don't know. And I think that it's important to be cognizant of that, but it's also important not to kind of shame ourselves and feel ashamed because we made mistakes. I mean, I can reel you off a list of really dumb stuff that I've done in my life, usually involving cars, or like DIY or something like that I just have absolutely no skills with whatsoever. I went, I think it was about 3 months without using my washing machine when I moved into a new place, because it didn't work. And I was waiting for somebody to come and fix it. And I realized that the tap was turned off.
Oh my God.
Did you realize, or did you actually hire someone?
I hired someone. I got someone to come, and they turned it on. I've called out the emergency, the emergency rescue service for cars, because I turned my windscreen wipers on and they were frozen. So when it tried to turn, it kind of unscrewed the bolt. So then when everything melted, the windscreen wipers weren't working because the bolt was just turning. And I was like, oh my God, the windscreen wipers aren't working. So I had to call out the AA, who came round and literally looked at it, got a spanner and tightened it and went, there you go.
Oh my gosh. That makes me feel so much better.
And then they're
Mike,
like, what
honestly.
do you do? No, but do you know what, this is the other thing too? Most of those people would have been like, and what do you do for a living? You would have said, well, actually, I'm a doctor. And they're like, well, you're a smart guy. How did you not know this?
Yeah.
Exactly, right. And this is the thing, is that we're very good at knowing stuff within our own fields, and we're very good at being experts on certain things. And a lot of people think that makes them an expert in everything, but it doesn't. It's, it's something that we're all like befallen to, and it depends on so many things. It depends on our upbringing, what kind of environment we're brought up in, the kind of stuff that our parents did or didn't do, or the kind of things that they hired professionals to do instead of doing themselves. That sort of stuff. Like, some people are amazing at fixing cars because they used to fix cars with their dad when they were a kid, or they're amazing at playing football because they played football with their dad when they were a kid, or whatever. Not necessarily because they've done football training specifically to train to become good at something. So like the idea of being skilled is so diverse and covers such a wide range of issues, but also doesn't cover everything.
I mean, this is, I think, a really, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, a relevant topic now that Huberman is talking about nutrition and Jordan Peterson is talking about things outside of his scope of practice. And we look up to these people that are like, we look at as experts and really intelligent, and they say really dumb shit about nutrition. And lots of people that don't really have the skills to critically analyze it go, well, he said it and he's really smart, so it must be right.
Exactly.
Like, what was that thing about Lucky Charms lately?
Oh yeah, with the blow up about them that, apparently. Go for it, Mike.
Yeah, so they did this the chart of different foods and how nutritious and healthy they are, and they put them on this scale. But they did them in scales within their own type of food. So among grains, like Lucky Charms is less healthy than this or more healthy than this, for example. And among meat, lean chicken is more healthy, and fish is more healthy than like smoked processed meats, right? And so they basically, Joe Rogan taking these two separate sets of data, I believe, because I didn't see the original stuff. I just see the debunks now because I've curated my own feed to just be from, I guess, sensible people. I think that the issue was that they just took bits from two separate bits of data and ranked them against one another. So they said that because one was at the bottom of the end of the scale in one, it had to be less healthy than one that was further up at the scale in the other, or something like that.
In different
It
categories.
wasn't really what it meant.
Yeah, it was a similar parallel to the Australian 5-star food rating.
Right.
In the 5-star food rating in Australia, they do it on like for like products.
So 5 stars is the healthiest, 1 star is the least healthy.
So you might see like, within fats, the preference might be that oils can't go above a 2. But within a cereal, there might be a 5 range. And the same thing, they'd be like, oh, Cocoa Pops are healthier than coconut oil. Like, how could this be? Like, well, they're actually not comparing like for like.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that's super frustrating about that is that there is just this currency that has appeared now, which is engagement, and it's more powerful than it's ever been before, and it's way more powerful than information or education. And the trouble with it is that, like, Joe Rogan wants to sell a podcast, or he wants to sell engagement on his social media. He's not trying to educate the masses necessarily per se, although he does provide a certain amount of education when he has certain guests on. But essentially what we do know is that a headline that says that someone has said something outrageously ridiculous that represents woke liberalism about food, because they'll combine it with everything else, that is far more dramatic and interesting and engaging, and is going to give loads of people another reason to shake their fists at society and go, look what we're messing up, look how you're ruining society by trying to pander to all of these things. And it is like it's the kind of cross-pollination of all of these cultures. I was interested because recently I was tagged in a vaccine post on Twitter by someone with a very big profile, and I got a lot of responses from people who were, anti-vaxxers or whatever, and kind of in those sort of camps. And what was really fascinating to me was that there was like this really clear checklist on it was like all of the accounts were made by the same person. You go to the account and they're like, right, Andrew Tate retweet, tick. Something about trans rights, but being anti it somehow, tick.
Gun ownership.
Woke liberalism is a terrible thing, tick. There's just all of these things that they sort of seem to have in common when they are going down this avenue of righteous information, because I can't call it wokeness, because that's the opposite of what it is. It's like this awakeness, they wake up sheep, that sort of stuff. Like they know more about the world, and I think it comes from this idea of wanting to somehow feel like they've found information that makes them better than everyone else, because not everyone else has realized it or woken up to it. Because otherwise they're just mainstream, aren't they?
Yeah, everyone else is gullible, not them.
Yeah,
exactly.
One day you'll realize just how unlucky you've been. But this is how also that social media platform works, is that once you get down 100%. The rabbit hole of one, they then get propositioned with all similar pieces of information. So it is hilarious, but also expected, that when you go and look at the individuals that are otherwise claiming,
climate change doesn't exist.
It's like, you're all being showing the same shit. You do realize that your shit you're saying we're being shown is the same but inverted. It's just that some people have the ability, like Liz mentioned before, to critically think about, like, maybe this isn't just the single message that I should be reading.
An echo chamber. So I'm getting the feeling like that when a patient comes to you, in your office, do we call is that what you call your practice?
A clinic, a surgery, an office. Yeah, we can call it whatever we like. My room.
Your room. I like surgery. That sounds really medical.
But that to me sounds like you might be cutting people up.
Have you cut someone up?
We call it, so in England, you call it a GP surgery. The practice is called a surgery. I don't really know why, because you don't do surgery, although you do minor ops, but it's called a surgery. So
okay.
Yeah. So you're a surgeon.
Really quick offshoot. I used to have a mole on my chin, and I used to hate this mole. And I used to think, like, whenever I would speak, the mole would move. And I was really conscious about it. And I went to the GP. I went to the GP and I said, hey, like, can you advise how I can get rid of this mole? He's like, oh, I can cut it out of you if you want. I was like, yes, sweet. I'm like toxically optimistic. I just think that like everything is always going to work out and it's going to be fine. And I tend to do like really risky things without like looking into them too much. And so I didn't realize that he was going to cut so deep and so big. This mole wasn't that big, by the way. It really wasn't. that I needed 5 stitches on my chin, and it stuck out like a beard for weeks until he could remove the stitches. And like, I don't care. I don't mind scars. I have lots of them. But yeah, I didn't realize I was going to end up with this scar, and he was going to like do surgery on the spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll call your room a surgery. But where I was going, when people come to your surgery and they're like, hey, Mike, I want to lose weight. I know that I have to cut out carbs and I can't drink any alcohol and my life's going to be no fun. You know, and ask advice about that. I'm getting the idea that you're not going to be like, so stupid. That's like, how would you go about, because we all come across people that are just like way off the mark. How would we go about approaching that?
Okay, so like I normally do it if I'm trying to show somebody a new way of looking at things. I often find that the most effective way to do it is by asking questions rather than telling them things, because I think you learn, like, in order to try and, you know, facilitate change, I think you really need to understand where somebody's coming from in the first place. So I might say, oh, that's interesting, you know, what makes you say that you need to cut out carbs, or where did that information come from? You know, do you know why that works? Just asking more questions around it to just get an idea of where the person is at, I guess. And saying, and actually acknowledging that, you know, they absolutely will lose weight if they cut out carbs and stop drinking alcohol, for sure. But is that something that you think you'd find easy to do? Is that something that you think you're going to struggle with? Because then some people might say, yeah, I don't actually drink that much, or I'm not a big fan of carbs. I just tend to eat them when people bring them into the office, for example. So if I know that I'm not eating that, I can do without it. This is the thing, like, everyone's relationship with food, everyone's psychology around food is so vastly different. Like, one person's massive restriction is another person's preference a lot of the time. So, and I think that we really forget that. And I've definitely fallen into that category before by assuming that when a patient tells me that they've cut out cake because they wanted to lose weight, and I'm like, you don't have to cut out cake. You can eat cake. It's okay. And they're like, I'm not that fussed by cake. Oh, okay.
They're obviously monsters, because cake is the best thing ever.
Well, I know, but this is the thing. Like, I think that it's really easy to, in the same way that you know, I think we just assume preferences, and we assume what's going to work for somebody and what's not going to work for somebody. And actually, for some people, maybe that's the way to do it, to cut carbs and cut alcohol. But you don't know whether that's the case until you speak to them. So I think speaking to them and showing interest engages people, helps them to realize that you're interested in helping them rather than just wanting to dismiss them, right? Because I think sometimes if people just try and counteract what you're saying, it feels more dismissive than it does educational, and it does feel like they're calling you stupid, because they just go, oh, you don't have to do that, you know. When really, even if you're saying that, you're actually trying to help them. But I think one of the things that we forget in the world of trying to help people change is that sometimes we focus more on doing what we think is the thing to do rather than actually helping people. Like, I often use this quote, like, do you actually want to help people, or do you just want to be able to say that you tried? Like, you know that by presenting this information in this way, it is not going to work. So do you want to just be able to say, well, I told them the right information, I told them what to do, and they just didn't do it? Or do you want to actually help them change? Because if you do, then you need to cut out this, like, the social media kind of, I'm just telling it like it is, some people will be offended by this. Well, don't offend them then. Actually, if you want to help them change, why do you want to piss them off? Why don't you want to help them realize the better way of doing things? And by doing
it's good for the algorithm.
Exactly. But you need to, I think people forget they need to modify their own behavior to help people change. And that looks different depending on who they're talking to as well.
Yeah, I think you can always see a coach who does that by saying, I'm only looking to work with motivated individuals. Yeah, like, they didn't want it enough. You just need to want it enough.
Don't DM if not serious. I'm like, everyone's serious when they initially say, hey, I don't want to die when I'm 60 because I have these health complications. But what they don't say is that I also have all of these competing, like, wants and needs and
priorities,
children, and I just don't know how to fucking manage, you know, like,
I have too many 100%. Plates spinning in the air at once. Yeah. Are there any, like, we'll call them zombie facts, things that just aren't true? Like, I have to cut out carbs thing, for example, but as you mentioned, that might be applicable for some people. And, you know, you try to explain it, but you're only one sensible voice in a sea of all these people. Like, is there a fact that just keeps popping its head back up no matter how many times you try and kill it?
I mean, the instant thing that comes to mind is the vaccine stuff. I think that can be really challenging for people, because again, depending on what echo chamber you're part of, it can be overwhelming. Like, I found it overwhelming. Like, you know, even when the vaccines first came out for COVID and we had all of this evidence, I was still really nervous going to my vaccine, because I was like, well, no matter what everyone's told me, there's still loads of people saying that I'm going to die by having this done. Like, it affects people who, you know, who, again, I'm not being derogatory about the people who believe it at all, because I know how easy it is to believe misinformation. But that's why I get so frustrated about the people that peddle it. But again, I don't want to keep going on about vaccines. I think one of the big things in healthcare is medication side effects generally. I think people will very often come in saying, this medication is, I want to stop this medication. Why do you want to stop this medication? Well, it's causing me to have, and they'll reel off like 5 symptoms. And you might say, okay, well, when did you start getting those symptoms? Oh, it's happened in the last 3 weeks. And how long have you been on that medication? About 10 years?
Oh my God. Yeah.
And you know, it's sometimes people are so, I think, so desperate to believe that A, there's an easy solution to the problem, and B, that it's something else's fault or whatever, there's something to blame, and that it's easily removable, that often they'll be very, very convinced that this is being caused by something very specific. And I think it can sometimes be difficult to detach those beliefs from the reality of what might be going on. And if you don't ask the right questions, you might not necessarily do that. You know, if somebody comes in and just says, I would just like to stop this medication, please, it's not agreeing with me, and you go, yeah, cool, okay, we can stop it and try something different, you never get to actually address what these issues are that could be a serious medical condition that they've started to develop, right? But in terms of other things, I mean, nutrition ones are really big, obviously, as you guys know. They're just those general beliefs, and about carbs being bad or certain types of food being bad specifically, and again, having to cut things out completely. And you know, things like people, I remember in the past I've had a few times when people have said, oh, I've cut out fizzy drinks, I'm just drinking fruit juice instead. They're like, oh, you know, and you want to be really encouraging, because, and this is again, I think, a big problem with fat loss and with dieting and healthy lifestyle change, is that a lot of people make big sacrifices in order to do something that is just as quote unquote unhealthy as what they're sacrificing. So actually, if they just kept those sacrifices in, or didn't do those sacrifices and did something else instead, it would be far more effective.
Yeah. For listeners that are thinking like, oh, what's wrong with fruit juice? I used to have a client, exactly the same scenario. She was like, Lizzie, I stopped drinking Pepsi. And she's like, I'm just drinking tons of orange juice instead. And like, when we think of food, it's not like good or bad. We can, you know, it's either dense in energy or calories or not, or dense in nutrients or not, even though the nutrients one has a little bit more nuance, because it's not as easy as coming down to one number, which is calories. With, you know, fruit juice, we've got micronutrients there, which is great. But if we compare the calories of fruit juice to soft drink, they're pretty much equal. We're swapping calories with not much nutrients for the same calories with more nutrients. So it's still a step in the right direction, but for weight loss, it's not really making a change. And I was kind of stuck too, Mike. I was like, oh, I don't want to like rain on her parade because she was doing something that she felt was good. And I wanted to give her a sense of ownership over her life. But at the same time, I didn't want to totally ignore it and not give her the information she needed. So yeah, that's a tricky one to navigate. But I think when you really care, you take the time to slow down and think about your response.
Well, I think that's the difference between people that end up with the success, is the ability to communicate it differently. Because like even with my mum, like she's never had issues that I'm aware of digestively. She's never had gluten problems. She's never had any of this sort of stuff. She wouldn't even know what gluten intolerance is, to be honest. And yet she has, at points and times of her life, gone and baked gluten-free almond meal dominant things because, well, one, she just liked the taste of it.
It's
too,
healthier.
but she does then believe that it's healthier because the recipe that she got that from suggested that it was.
Yeah.
You know, so it's even influencing someone who's not necessarily seeking better health outcomes or weight change. She's just seeking a recipe, you know.
Yeah.
And it still infiltrates.
Mike, you used to believe some things that you know now not to be true or very helpful.
Never.
You lost a ton of weight, didn't you, as well?
I did.
Yeah.
I did, yeah. About 35 kilos, I think it was in total.
Wow.
It's not anymore, if I'm honest, but it was at one time 35 kilos.
Because a little bit has come back on?
Yeah, for sure. From a partly intentional and partly unintentional point of view, from the sense that I was very, very focused on weight loss for a long period of time because I was very overweight and I wanted to lose weight. And then I sort of wanted to achieve a certain amount of weight loss, rightly or wrongly, in order to prove to myself that I could do that. And interestingly, when I did lose all that weight, I kind of thought I kind of realized that I didn't necessarily value, like, from an aesthetic point of view, I didn't want to be skinny. I didn't want to be as small as possible. I kind of wanted to get stronger and get better at training and all of that kind of stuff. So partly intentionally, I, stopped trying to be in a calorie deficit all the time so that I could support my training a bit more.
Okay.
And partly I just really like food an awful lot. And I really like trying lots of different foods in large amounts an awful lot. And I have quite a sedentary day-to-day life from like a work point of view. So I don't have a great amount of calorie expenditure kind of day to day. So I've definitely gained a little bit more weight than I would like to.
Okay.
But I'm on it. I know what to do.
This is not sort of where we were talking, but can we unpick how you navigate those preferences? In the lens that I'm thinking is that, like, we know that, you can have somebody who may visibly to an uneducated individual appear to be unhealthy. And then we can have, an individual who's like fit and healthy looking, but isn't actually very healthy from a social or spiritual or social, I said social twice, blood work perspective, you name it, right? Like there's these cross bridges between different body sizes. How have you found navigating I was overweight, unhealthy, and unhappy potentially, to then pushing it too far to now kind of finding your settling point? And like,
well, so I think I was fortunate because I don't think I ever pushed it too far. I think the level of leanness that I achieved, I mean, I did a fitness kind of photo shoot, and I had a few abs in the photo shoot, but I still had plenty of body fat. I wasn't underweight. I was at a level of leanness that I felt was possibly sustainable to myself at the time. I was not right about that. But I felt that there are a lot of people who are walking around quite comfortably at the level of leanness that I was. I wasn't like, shredded and vascular or, anything like that. I was just the leanest I'd been. But to me, I'm 5 foot, well, I call it 5'9". I'm sticking with that. But I weighed just under, I think 67 kilos, just over 67.5 kilos, I think, at the time. And so that is a small person. And I think that because I had always, when I was very overweight, I did just have this idea that I was quote unquote stocky. So I imagined that when I lost weight, I would, just be like, have kind of this, like, I didn't expect to be like muscular or anything like that, but I didn't expect to be quite as not, I think skinny is the wrong word, because I didn't look skinny, but I just looked small. Like I looked like my head looked a bit too big for my body. Like when I saw like photos of myself, I'm like, oh, that looks funny. And it not in a I was never, not in a sort of ashamed way or anything like that, but just in terms of like what I imagined it to look like when I lost weight versus what it actually did look like. It just turned out that it wasn't as exciting for me to have abs as I thought it would be. Okay. And I think a lot of people experience that, but then chase it even more. Like they think that maybe that's because they're not quite lean enough, so they try and get even leaner. And so like I said, I don't think I pushed it too far, but I do think that it was just it was a hill I needed to get over, almost to prove to myself that I was capable of living the kind of lifestyle that I wanted to try and live. And then I guess between kind of then and now, I mean, if I'm to be ruthlessly honest about it, in terms of my diet and things like that, it hasn't been massively healthy for a while, and I'm working on trying to change those things, and I kind of keep doing that. But I think I often then revert to, it's fun. I've been thinking about this today, for example. Like I keep eating biscuits at work because there are biscuits there, and every day I think, do you know what? I keep eating too many biscuits at coffee break in the morning, and I feel horrendous for the rest of the day. It gives me like heartburn, or it will just make me feel just uncomfortably full. And I'm like, actually, I don't think biscuits agree with me that much. So maybe I either limit it to 1 or 2, or I just stop having biscuits at work, right? So I do that. And then the next day I get to coffee break and I'm like, wow, biscuits, bring it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, because it's like that short-term, like quick kind of gratification. And I suspect, and I was thinking about this today, that the reason that I'm doing that is probably because I'm not having a decent enough breakfast. So when it comes to coffee break and I've trained and all I've had is like a protein shake or whatever, I'm actually genuinely hungry when it comes to coffee breaks. So when I'm presented with this food that is tempting, I'm going to eat it, and I'm probably going to eat it to excess. So actually, this is why I think people talk about how sometimes trying to be in a calorie deficit doesn't help you lose weight, because if you're trying to eat as little as possible and you're hungrier than you might normally be, then you might end up over consuming in the bits where you're not tracking the calories, right? So I've gone way off tangent with this question answer.
No, it's been great.
Well, no, this is the whole point. I was kind of interested in somebody who, how you navigate that, because I think that's the hardest thing that people struggle with. Is a lot of people can get from like point A to point B, and they think they need to stay at B, but really they kind of need to find somewhere in between, and they end up back at A all of a sudden because they forgot about what they did to get to B. And there's always a to and fro.
Yeah. And
100%.
I think it's important also for people to hear a doctor say that I still have things that I can work on, and I still have temptations that I give into, and it's not just them. And I don't know, Dean's a bit of a saint, but I do that stuff sometimes too.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I need to start doing yoga, because I tend to, when I have intrusive thoughts, I tend to hold my breath and then I have panic attacks. And I think that yoga can help me with my breathing. So I'm like, I definitely need to do this. It's important. I love myself enough to start, and I'll do it for a few days, and then I'll kind of forget. And I'm like, oh shit, I got to do that yoga again. And then, so we all minus Dean do that stuff.
Well, not really. I've had a shit back since I was 23.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Because I'm skilled enough to know how to train around it, that I can continue moving forward, and I don't break myself enough that I'd have to stop for months on end.
Right.
So like my skill set is what actually is the problem. Whereas if I knew no better, I'd probably just break myself and then be forced to do some form of rehabilitation.
That's interesting.
So no, we all have our crux.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a byproduct, because I think we have this inherent pendulum swing, right? And we do it with information the same as we do it with our lifestyles. And I think that so one of the mistakes that I made early on in my dieting career was that I thought that, certain types of food were bad and certain types of food were good. And to lose weight, you had to go paleo or cut out, wheat, sugar, and dairy, that sort of stuff. And then as I moved into a more flexible dieting approach, and I realized that that wasn't necessary, the pendulum then starts to swing in the other direction. So then you start to manipulate stuff further and further. So I may have even mentioned this the last time we did a podcast, but I always kind of strike this as my lowest dieting point, which was when I substituted out broccoli from my diet and replaced it with Solero ice cream, which is the same amount of calories as 2 portions of broccoli, right? And I was so pleased with myself for doing that, because I was like, I'm factoring in treats. And you're not factoring in treats. This is not a healthy diet. This is not a healthy way of eating, right? So yes, those things have their place, and it's important not to be scared of foods that you think are bad, But it's also important to recognize that some foods are more healthful than others, and that you shouldn't be like having your entire diet consist of those foods that aren't bad, you know, but that are a little bit less healthy. So I think that that's the same with that kind of pendulum swing. When you then start thinking, oh, it's about my relationship with food, I don't want to be too restrictive, I should let myself have biscuits at coffee break, and you start doing that, and then one turns into five, that then becomes problematic as well. So I think the problem is that it is always trying to find that middle ground from the pendulum swing, but it's hard to just land on that. Sometimes you have to experience both sides of the pendulum to realize where it is that you actually want to be.
Yeah, we find that to be like quite a common journey that people go down when they go from clean eating to flexible dieting. Like super quickly, for those that are like, what is flexible dieting? And basically it means that you can eat any food you want so long as it fits your calorie and or macro targets, depending if you're tracking just calories or macros. And lesson 1 of our macro tracking course actually is all about the history and future of macro tracking. And I talk about the difference between IIFYM, which is an acronym for if it fits your macros, and macro tracking / flexible dieting. So we've seen this theme where people go from clean eating good foods and bad foods to understanding that, oh, weight loss comes down to calorie or energy management, calories in, calories out. And then they just fit in as much ice cream and, you know, they hit their protein with whey and they eat no quote unquote real food, but they're losing weight, right? But they're not supporting their health or their performance or their energy levels or their mood or their concentration or anything like that. And they go from one extreme to the other. And then in the end, we find most people, the pendulum swings to the middle and they're like, you know what? Fruits, veg, lean protein, the calories I have left over after that, I might choose some cookies in my morning break.
Yeah, if we're factoring in all
that's the holy grail, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, for sure. And look, a lot of people think, I saw in your story, was it just yesterday, someone asked you the question, do I have to track calories to lose weight? I love your answer because I love all your answers. But I think that's really important to understand that, like, no, you don't have to track necessarily, but you need to find some way of managing calorie intake if you want to manage body weight. And I personally think that for a lot of people, not everyone, but for a lot of people, just, you know, doing a food diary and logging calories and macros for a short period of time to get an understanding of what's what. Like maybe almonds isn't a great source of protein after all. Maybe it's 50% fat, can be a really good guide so that you can find that balance between, you know, maybe I should allow myself a biscuit and biscuits are bad and having 5 biscuits.
Yeah, I think there's been a disconnect between the communities of dieting dogma, let's say, whereby flexible dieting and or macro tracking has been forgotten as a potential education tool, as opposed to it being this way of life, you know, and that like tracking calories is inherently bad or negative. It's like, if I wanted to do my own tax, there's gonna have to be some period of education that I need to go through in order to do that. And that's with anything you want to do. You should probably preference some education.
But you don't need to stay in that course forever.
No, I need to learn enough that I can do things with a relatively, decent informed approach and hope for the best. Swing 100%. For the bleachers.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. Love it. Well, I hope listeners have gotten a lot from that because
well, the point is that it's difficult to navigate, but you just have to find your own little groove.
Yeah.
And and there's this competing question of, like, to love yourself is to be free with your food choices, but also not so free that you then cause potential harm, damage, and or discomforts. Like you said, it's like that one biscuit is fine and that's all right, but do you really love yourself if you're eating the entire packet?
Is this the difference between clean food and intuitive eating, maybe?
Yeah, but I also think, like, love yourself, but don't kid yourself. You know, I think we do make excuses for ourselves, and there's lots of people who have really reasonable reasons why they don't engage in a healthy lifestyle and stuff like that. But I think also we should try and understand our own limits. And like for example, at the moment, I'm absolutely loving training. Training is amazing for me at the moment. I am enjoying it for it being fun. I'm enjoying it for like the progress that I'm making and like the strength changes that I've seen and stuff like that. And that is absolutely incredible. And I can say to myself, oh yeah, I just want to be, I want to train hard and eat plenty and live well and all of that kind of stuff. But if I don't recognize the things that I'm doing that aren't really living up to that, to kind of those values, then I am just kidding myself. Like if I don't go also, Lizzie and Dean, I've got to be honest, I'm eating a few too many biscuits at the moment. Then like, who am I helping? I'm not helping myself by doing that, because I'm ultimately going to get frustrated, and I'm ultimately not going to be training as well as I should be, because I'm not, my nutrition isn't as good as it could be, or isn't as supportive to my training as it could be, because I'm not feeling my best all the time. And actually, that's not even necessarily got anything to do with fat loss. I'm not saying that I should eat fewer biscuits because I need to lose weight and it's really important that I'm leaner than I am now. I'm saying that I should be doing that because I'm eating biscuits for the wrong reasons, and at the sacrifice of food that would make me feel better. Like that seems like something that is a positive way of looking at it, like, to try and improve things, not a restrictive way of saying I shouldn't be eating biscuits because they are bad, but it's the same outcome. And I think that's what sometimes we forget, is that sometimes, and this is something I've always said, like sometimes people need to, sometimes people need to realize that they can eat a donut and still be healthy. And sometimes people need to realize that they cannot eat a donut and still be happy. And I think that's kind of a really important way of looking at things, because actually some people could do with eating a lot more flexible foods, and some people could do with eating a lot less flexible foods. And that's not, out of sacrifice or punishment. That's out of trying for them to have better lives.
Yeah, I think intent matters in this instance.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Understanding that you have the opportunity.
Yeah. So if we wrap up this conversation with a how to be less shit tip, this would be maybe, I don't know, a take-home message for how our audience can be less shit, because we've identified that we're all a bit shit at something at some point. So what might be your less shit tip?
I think, to be honest with yourself, I think exactly like off the back of what we were talking about, I mean, I know that you will have probably seen on my Instagram me spending a lot of time whinging about the gym in certain sort of training sessions.
I was surprised to hear you say that you love training right now, because I'm
starting to be honest with myself about it. And actually, like, I think the thing is, I feel really strongly about helping people to understand that you don't have to love the gym to get the most out of it. You don't have to adore getting up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym in order to get the benefits from going to the gym, because I want the gym to be more accessible to more people. I want more people to want to train, and I want people to understand that, the people that generally promote health and fitness are people who are passionate about going to the gym and training and all that kind of stuff, which is amazing. But there's this whole cohort of people who see that stuff and can't relate to it, because they don't realize that a lot of those people are putting on a brave face because they know that they need to go to the gym, and actually inside they're like, I hate this, And so I kind of wanted to present that point of view that actually you can be consistent and go to the gym 3-4 times a week and actually not particularly enjoy it. And I think that message is really important. But as time has gone on, I've started to feel like a bit like that attitude has not been serving me particularly well, in the sense that I have used my gym consistency to excuse potentially a lack of effort in certain scenarios in the gym.
Okay.
And I excuse myself from hard training a lot of the time because of, and it's not intentional, but it's like, oh, I'm worried I'll injure myself if I do that too much. Oh, I feel really out of breath. I've got to stop. And there have been many times in the gym where my trainer will have said to me, you had another 2 reps there. You've cheated yourself. No, I didn't, and been sort of defiant about it. And I kind of made a New Year's resolution this year that I'm going to stop disagreeing with my coach, that when he tells me that I can do something, because I trust him as a professional, I know that he understands how coaching works. I know that he can look at a bar path and see how fast it's moving and understand whether or not I've genuinely not got any more in the tank. And I know that he knows how I train and how I move and what I'm comfortable with and what I'm not, that if he tells me I can do another rep, I can do another rep, and I have to do another rep.
I bet he loves that New Year's resolution.
Yeah, he kind of does a little bit
I
too
bet.
much, I think, which
Yeah.
is
I was
a
going to
shame.
say, it's maybe
And,
pushing.
and you know what I've noticed by doing that, because I've really committed to kind of trying to make it count a little bit more when I'm at the gym, like not letting my knee quite touch the floor on a lunge because my legs are tired. You know, I'm just going to wuss out a little bit of these couple of reps just to make my day a little bit easier. I'm properly doing it. And the sense of satisfaction that I have in myself and the pride that I have in the fact that I'm doing this is like immeasurable. Like I'm leaving the gym and like an hour later, I'm just feeling so excited about what happened in the gym that day and what I did and how I really wanted to stop doing that exercise, but I carried on till the end of the set. Like it makes me proud of myself in a way that I think lots of things struggle to do. And I have found that in turn has helped me to really enjoy the process a lot more. Now, I say this, I know that we are day 23 of the new year. So this is not like, this isn't long-term change yet, but I'm pretty determined to try and get this to stick, because I think that I've overestimated the value of turning up to the gym and underestimated the value of, what is it? Showing up and turning up and showing up. I want to show up more.
Oh, I'm really happy for this change for you, Mike. That's
Thanks,
huge.
me too.
Yeah, that's really big.
Was it just a change in mindset, you think, or are there things you've actually implemented to help you commit to saying yes to more?
Like, was there a big thing that happened?
No, like, is it like, oh, look, I'm sick of this. It's a recognition, having internal dialogue, all great things. But then when it comes to action, it's still fucking hard to do the one more rep. You know, like,
for sure.
So like, was it then a conversation with the personal trainer to say, hey, you normally do this and I don't like it, so I don't do one more rep. But I think if you encourage me, maybe this would be it. Or was there something, or is it just you have literally just kind of ripped the Band-Aid off?
I think over time I've just got bored of myself, like I'm like, why do I keep complaining? If I keep complaining about this, but I do it 3 times a week, I obviously don't hate it, or I wouldn't still be doing it. But I do find it really uncomfortable. And I find that I struggle to, to embrace that pain. But I also know that I can do it, and I have done it, and I have made improvements. And I know how great it makes me feel when I make progress in the gym. And actually, the thing that I keep trying to remind myself from a lifestyle point of view is that I am at my happiest when I am eating well, and I am training well, and I am looking after myself. And it's really, really easy to underestimate the impact that those things can have on your general well-being, from, obviously from a physical point of view, but from a psychological and mental point of view as well. And I kind of just got to the point where I was just bored of listening to myself complain. Like, I was like, this isn't funny. And like, it's not funny anymore. It's like, I don't want to play the clown for other people's entertainment, because that's not what that was supposed to be. It was supposed to be me being honest about it. But I started to get almost triggered when people would message going, how much they love watching me complain in the gym. It's so funny. It's so funny watching you train. I'm like, I'm not a comedy. Like, this is my life. That's not what I want to be. I don't want to be a clown.
Yeah.
Although, like, I will happily do like Instagram reel sketches that are intentionally, funny, related to those things. That I'm okay with. But I don't want my life to be a source of entertainment. I'm happy to be honest with people about how I'm feeling, and hopefully it helps them in some way, but not comedy. That's not what I'm here for.
Yeah. So the content was relatable, but also ruthless in that it made you realize that you were your own enemy at that stage.
Yeah.
Maybe we can all think about what's the thing we've been complaining about for years, and how can we make a change? Like, it might not be the gym, it might be a person in your life, or a course you've wanted to do and you've just been complaining about all the reasons why you can't, or something. I think we all have that thing.
I think also a lot of people are like victims to their own perception, and like perception shifts. Like, it may surprise you, but I did exactly essentially what you've just spoken about in almost every day of my contest prep, in that there'd be periods where I'd be walking and I'm just like, I'm so tired. Like, fuck, I'm tired. Jeez, I'm tired.
And then I'd be like, I can't do this.
Then I'd just watch my steps just gradually get slower and slower and slower. And I'm like, fuck, if I keep it this, this is going to take me 45 minutes and not 30 minutes. And then I just like, you know what? I'm super energetic,
Yeah.
And then I'd just try and switch. And then immediately I'd be like, oh my God, prep's fucking great fun. You know?
Because you become that guy as well. Like you become the guy that whinges about the gym and doesn't make any progress and wusses out of the last few reps. Like, I don't want to, you start to become that identity. And I was like, do I want that to be my identity? The person that whinges about going to the gym? No, I want my identity to be the guy that smashes the gym and does really well at it and has actually like achieved a considerable amount of lifestyle change and continues to do so against all odds. And I want to be proud of that work, not be beholden to being, you know, the guy that just can't do it very well, you know?
That's massive.
Good lessons.
Thank you for sharing that. We were going to ask you for something worth sharing, but I think that was pretty big. That was a big share.
Yeah.
Unless you do have something you think that is worth sharing with the audience. I don't know, a recipe, a movie, a quote.
Oh, so many recipes. I mean, I made a white chocolate and raspberry cheesecake yesterday, and that
not with onions on.
That's up there with one of my top cheesecake.
Raspberry cheesecake.
White chocolate raspberry, yeah.
Okay.
It's one of the. These are funny. I'm not an emotional eater by any means, and I'm not really someone who's ever struggled with food. But my mum used to make this white chocolate-esque cheesecake that had like a raspberry like coulis on. It
was like
top.
a jelly.
Jelly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's the only food that I know that I've woken up in the middle of the night and went, fuck, I could do with a slice of that. And I went to the fridge and had a slice of cheesecake.
In the middle of the night?
Yeah, like 2 or 3 in the morning.
That
just
is
super
so
random. I was walked straight to the fridge, cut a slice, was like, that is such a good cheesecake.
Incredible.
That's funny.
So it must be my thing.
Mike was saying on his story, I sound like I stalk you on social media. I just find you incredibly insightful. People were messaging Mike, or 2 people messaged you and said, is that onions on top of your cheesecake? But it was raspberries. That's a disgusting combination.
They said, is that onions? And I was like, where? And I was like, I watched the video back thinking like there was a pile of onions in the corner in the kitchen or something like that. I was like, what do they mean? Is that onions? And they were like, on the cheesecake, it looks like red onions. And I was like,
yuck.
It's a cheesecake, number one. Like, of course, it's obviously raspberry. And then like 5 minutes later, I had another one. And I was like, are you kidding me? And then when I posted that story about people saying it was onions, so many people replied to it saying, I thought it was onions too.
But they're not the right shape. There's nothing about them.
I know. There was nothing oniony about it.
Liz and I just booked flights to Oaxaca in Mexico for next weekend.
Spelled O-X.
O-A-X-A-C-A, Oaxaca.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one of the foods that so they have a few foods there that are a little bit different to the rest of Mexico. And it's like apparently like a really...
it's only an hour and a half in a plane from where we are.
Cuisine delight, old Oaxaca.
Yeah.
But one of the drinks that popped up was called horchata de atún, which is tuna in Spanish. And horchata is sweet rice milk.
Or sweet nut milk.
Well, no, rice in Mexico, though.
Oh, okay. In Spain, it's nuts, isn't it? In Mexico, it's rice.
Tiger nut.
Yeah, so...
tuna in sweet rice milk.
Like blended, like a shake.
We don't know if it's blended or what. We don't know.
All right, Mike, would you rather eat cheesecake with onions on top or have a tuna and rice milk shake?
Well, the difference is the tuna and rice milk shake has just been told to me is in a place that is full of delicacies in Mexico. So I think I would like to try. I would try that.
Okay.
I could get on board with a plain cheesecake with caramelized onion, though. Dude, like if you did a plain cheesecake, caramelized onion on top, it's just a savory cheesecake.
No, I'm not okay with it.
What do you mean?
No. All right, another would you rather to see us out. Would you rather giggle every time a patient cries in your surgery?
I'm getting palpitations just thinking about
that. Or have a flatulence problem, both in frequency and in odor?
I think I would choose the latter, because if you have a flatulence problem, at least you'd have control over it. I think it would, and I think like you could do that at discrete opportunities.
Okay. In this instance,
also we all have a flatulence problem in both frequency and odor, right?
Well, you know what? Of course, everyone has.
I don't know. Maybe sometimes. I don't eat enough biscuits.
For the most part, I actually like, I feel like I do a lot of ghost farts where they're just like, oh, that wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
But in this, would you rather, you can't control it. Like you're just farting all the time. They always stink. So like your surgery would stink, but you're not giggling at people when they cry at least.
Are they audible?
I was going to say,
Yeah.
is it Step Brothers level? No, you can't say they're both audible and smelly.
Not audible. They're just frequent and smelly.
I mean, this is becoming less of an easy choice, but I don't
know.
I mean, I think, I guess you could be like, maybe if you warned people appropriately beforehand, like if you had a sign on your door saying like, this doctor has this following disability, please understand. And then, I mean, I think they're both equally bad, but I guess that one's like psychologically bad and the other one is physically bad, right? So it would be really upsetting if someone giggles when you cry, but it would be really unpleasant if someone's like farting at you all the time and it smells bad and sounds bad. And actually, I suppose you could argue that farting while people are crying is probably as bad as giggling while they're crying anyway. So if we really had to choose, then I guess it's an easy choice, but I still would not like to do either.
I don't know, because how many of your patients cry?
I've cried at so many doctors.
In a day, how many percentages though? How many in a day?
I quite a significant number. Yeah.
With daily cries?
At least daily, yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
But let's just say you see 15 patients in a day and 5 cry. That means you're only upsetting
15 patients in a half a day.
This is true. Okay, 30 patients and 10 cry. That means you're only upsetting 10 people versus 30 people of stanky ass farts.
I didn't really think about that way. This is the gift that keeps on giving, this question, isn't it? Like
so are the farts.
You can't stop thinking of different nuances of this question that just make it impossible to answer. Gosh.
You know what I would do?
What you would giggle?
I'd giggle for sure.
Yeah, but you have no heart. Dean always chooses the absolute worst answer, and he's like, "Whatever, I don't even care."
But I typically do it without thought.
Yeah, because actually, it's a totally theoretical scenario that will never happen, and yet somehow we're agonizing about how to answer it.
Well, but then Liz will make me feel bad about it. She's like, "Would you rather?"
Because you're a fucking monster.
Would you rather 5 people that you don't know die, or 1 person that you do know dies? And I'm like, the 5 people die. Like,
but he's not just. He's like, "Fuck the 5 people."
I'm like, yeah, don't know them. Like, they die. And she's like, "But what about their families?" I'm like, "I've never met them. There's no emotional attachment. I don't care."
It's not all about you.
And then she's like, "You're a terrible person." I'm like, "This isn't a real scenario."
What I have to live with? I have to kiss this guy and sleep next to this guy and work with this guy, this monster of a human being.
Like, there's no consideration.
Look, listeners, I'd love you to take a screenshot, tag Dr. Mike, flex_success, and let us know. Would you rather giggle at anyone that cries at you or have a flatulence problem, both in odor and frequency?
I'd giggle then.
So it's farts or giggles. That's what we're voting on.
Giggle and fake cry. That's it.
Giggle and fake cry.
Like, oh, I'm so sorry for you.
You disguise it as a cry.
Style it out. Wow, that's a new one.
And then when they left, I'd actually laugh at them.
Oh, Dean! Oh my, this guy. Don't worry, I'll slap him after the episode. Domestic violence is okay sometimes. No,
women on men. Women on men.
No. Okay, we need to edit a lot of this podcast out, I think. All jokes, guys, all jokes. Well, Mike, if people wanted to follow you on social media, where may they find you?
They may find me at Dr. Mike II. So it's DrMikeThe2ND. And that's everywhere.
Okay.
Easy.
And you're on Twitter now, I hear.
I was on Twitter from way before stuff like Instagram. I just had stopped using it because it's so awful. Oh yeah, TikTok as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, TikTok.
You're trying to crack the TikTok.
I mean, I just feel like it's important to embrace new forms of media and stuff. I've really struggled with TikTok because I don't really know what to do, and no one cares. And it's really weird going from, I like posting on Instagram because I have people respond and we have chats and discuss things. But I don't really know what you're supposed to do on TikTok. You just post videos and no one sees them. And then another day begins.
Right.
Can you even comment on TikTok videos?
We're not on TikTok, so we
You
don't know how it
can.
works.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you can comment on them. It's actually like if you want to waste a day, it's probably the most useful social media because it's just the algorithm is so clever in terms of what you enjoy watching that it just keeps giving you stuff that you find, like for me, it's all humor stuff. So I see stuff that I find so funny, and then there's just more and more of it. Like I can't go on TikTok and watch like a couple of videos without needing to like copy the link and send it to like 3 people. Go, oh my god, so will love this. It's a great algorithm, but it's just it's like it's great as a consumer, but as someone trying to make stuff for it, it's very confusing. I am confused.
Okay. Well, if I was on TikTok, I would definitely follow you, but alas, I am not. I'm not. Do you follow Kids Getting Hurt on Instagram?
Say, when we say funny, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, Mike, come on, mate.
I feel like you wouldn't laugh at that.
He's got to join the giggle party here.
It's videos of just kids getting hurt. And
it's amazing.
Absolutely hilarious. I love it. I don't think
like actual hurt or just like,
very.
It's a mixture.
Like a You've Been Framed level of hurt or like worse?
Like a mum steps back out of the car and trips and nearly falls, but saves her baby. Or
like a kid.
Or a kid's riding down a road and goes, Dad, look at me, and then runs into a car, like a parked car.
But doesn't like be seriously injured.
In some instances, for sure.
Yeah, some of them are like pretty bad injuries. Well, like you think they are because the video ends usually once the incident happens. But like most of the time, it's just like a dog running straight into a kid or something.
Or a breakdancer flipping and kicking someone, or,
Yeah.
But like, I think
okay.
I will assess. My Instagram is either people I know, clients, people that I'm interested in being educated by, or it's just kids getting hurt and
dogs.
or like wild animal videos.
Oh
yeah. Do you follow like Nature is Metal?
Oh yeah, I do.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
I find that shit very intriguing.
Yeah. But anyways, if anyone's going to follow anything and you're not following Flex Success or Mike, what the heck are you doing?
Kids getting hurt.
Yeah, do that before kids getting hurt. Thank you for coming on the episode. It has been a fantastic number 100.
Thank you for having me. Happy 100. And that is like puts you in the top, what is it, 0.0 something% of podcasters. Like nobody makes it to 100 episodes. That's
I have no idea.
Yeah, there's some statistic. If you make 100 episodes of a podcast, that literally puts you in the elite podcasters because so many people start podcasts and barely anyone ever gets to 100 episodes.
Great. Well, we have no intent on slowing down.
No.
Thank you. All right, listeners, we'll see you in 101, which will have, if it has a guest, I don't know, we haven't recorded it yet. They won't be as funny or intelligent or handsome or wise.
It's unlikely.
But maybe it'll be a good episode. We'll have to wait and see.
Maybe.
All right. Bye, everyone.
See ya.